Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 19 of the book of Galatians, perhaps my most snarky title of all time. I'm going to title it today, Taking Matters into Your Own Pants. The subtitle is Taking the Matters into Your Own Hands, which is what Abraham and Sarah do. So we have a story today which is described right off the bat as an allegory, which is an illustration that depicts a general principle. So we're going to fly at 40,000 feet today. And we have a conflict between two pathways. It's like a fork in the road, and you have to choose one. And this happened 2,000 years before the Galatians, and is certainly happening 2,000 years since the Galatians. And there's this struggle, and the struggle is with earning and scheming and taking things into your own hands. So this is an allegory of taking things into your own hands and pants, which is what Abraham and Sarah do. And ironically, you'd never put this in the Bible, I think, if this was written by man. But this is an illustration that depicts these general principles of two women representing two covenants. You got to sort of choose one. One is the right answer. We have two spouses, and they make the wrong decision. But then the same couple eventually makes the right decision. So they start by taking it into their own hands and into their own pants, and eventually they take matters by faith, and they serve, Abraham specifically, serves as an example for all men, for all women, for all time of doing this right. Ironically, he also did it wrong. So here we go. This is from Galatians chapter 4, verse 21. Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you not listen to the law? For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by a slave woman, one by a free woman. And they're going to represent these two covenants. Now, this may be interpreted allegorically. These women are the two covenants. One is from Mount Sinai, bearing children for slavery, and she is Hagar. Now, Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. She corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalems, now the other covenant, is above, is free, and she is our mother. For it is written, Rejoice, O barren one who does not bear. Break forth and cry aloud, you who are not in labor. For the children of the desolate one will be more than those of the one who has a husband. Now, you brothers, you Galatians, like Isaac, are children of the promise. But just as at the time he who was born according to the flesh persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, so also it is now. He's saying that both of these covenants were at conflict and currently are at conflict. But what does the scripture say? Cast out the slave woman and her son, for the son of the slave woman shall not inherit with the son of the free woman. So, brothers, we are not children of the slave, but children of the free woman. Okay, so here we go. You've got Hagar representing one covenant, born of the flesh, Ishmael, illustrative as a slave to the law and achieved by works. It's man doing what he can to obtain the promises. It's the moment of time when Abraham and Sarah took their eye off the ball and scheming and kind of tried to perpetuate their own line through their slave Hagar. So Ishmael was born, and it is interesting that Abraham serves here as an imperfect example of faith. This is the part I think you'd never put in the Bible if the Bible was written by just men. All right, and then we have Sarah, who eventually here is born of the promise. It's a free child and represents a Jerusalem above, and this is Isaac. So Isaac is the free son, is the promise of the flesh, obtained by faith, achieved and participated in by the coattails. So that is, God promises this, God accomplishes this, and we kind of participated in. The phrase I like to use is, we ride the coattails of this God activity, something that's made by God and obtained by God. Similarly, Jesus' death and resurrection, Jesus' death, which is payment for sin, his resurrection, which is achieving life and conquering death, Do we accomplish those things? No, we obtain them by faith in what Jesus does. So this is a crazy scripture. It's unusual. You wouldn't put it in your family history, by choice. But God puts this in the canon of scripture for this moment in time and for forever. So we can look back at the story of a man trying to earn and scheme his way, taking matters into his own pants, to scheme his way into the promises of God. And if you read the story back in Genesis, I think it's 16, you'll see that God takes care of Hagar and Ishmael in a very intimate and very nice way. But that's at the ground level. We're supposed to be flying, and he tells us here, we're supposed to be flying at the 40,000-foot view, as this is an allegory today, which represents a general principle. And it's highlighting belief and faith, and those who serve as both a bad example, that is Abraham and Sarah making their first choice, and then they serve as a good example. So they turn to their own ways, they forsake the promise, they didn't trust God, they take matters into their own hands, on one hand, but then they turn to God's ways, they trust the promise, which is Sarah, way past menopause, 40 years past menopause, is going to have a child. And so then they serve as a good example as faith in God. So what are we supposed to do? What's the bottom line here? He tells the Galatians, he says, throw out the bad covenant, throw out the bad way of thinking, cast out the law, cast out the slave child. And we should too. We should be living our lives by faith, which is investing, riding the coattails of something that God ordains, God invents, and God promises. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this allegory of two people who try to take matters into their own pants and try to take matters into their own hands. Let's live by faith today. Thanks for listening.